Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. And I have a great entrepreneur on the show today. You know, you watch the show all the time, and you know we love entrepreneurs that really change the dynamic. They change the conversation no matter what space they're in. And when we talk about serial entrepreneurs, we talk about people that build businesses, have an exit, have a successful exit, and then they move on to something else that they're passionate about or something that they love. And in this particular case, we've been able to book Mr. Micah Berg on the show. And of course, he is the consummate serial entrepreneur. I mean, he's done so much in his young life already. He's built businesses, he's sold them, he's had successful exits. And one thing that caught our attention is something that's happening in Nashville, Tennessee. And Micah is right in the middle of it, and he's got a great new and very exciting launch happening. I wanted to get him on the show sort of to get the exclusive about it, because when Micah turns something into gold, you can't even book him after he gets going. So Micah, welcome to the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Of course, you've got a saxophone behind you and a guitar. I know you play some sax. You've got someone who you love that plays guitar. And this thing that's happening in Nashville, when we think about Nashville, we think about music, we think about art, we think about a venue oftentimes, but you're bringing something brand new to Nashville called Aura. And when we heard about it, we had to bring you on the show. So tell us a little bit about Aura, and then we're going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for all the kind words. Only half of those are true, but I'll take all of them. Very kind of you. And yeah, so, you know, you think about Nashville as Music City, or that's what it's been branded as for the last several decades. But as a local here, what's missing, in my opinion, is an elevated experience, right? We can all, and we're all Southern, and it's totally fun. And so this is not a bash at what we are. This is more of an elevation, I would say. But, you know, you think about Nashville and you think country music, cowboy boots and hats. And that's pretty much what you get alongside some cheap to medium priced beer. And, you know, as an entrepreneur, I come from a hospitality background, a real estate background, a service business background. And one thing that's missing to me in Nashville is an experience that includes some level of hospitality, right? I love to host people as a regular part of my career and also in my house. And one thing that's important to me is that experience when they walk into my house, from the moment they step foot across the door to when they leave, hopefully taking all the leftovers so I don't have to eat those. And that does not exist in that format for entertainment and events in Nashville.
Yeah, I love it. Of course, one thing that we talk about that's really a hot topic, sort of really blowing up at the seams in a good way, is immersive experiences. For the people watching the show, you know, I've had Mr. Steve Kopelman on the show. He's one of the worldwide leading experts in immersive with his business down in Houston, Texas. And you're planning for this Aura Lounge. It's not just going to be an old-fashioned lounge. You're going to offer something that really is an immersive light, sound, sort of experiential space for the clients. And say that 3 times real fast, Micah, but tell us about that, because I love that approach.
Yeah, it is a unique approach here where we are going for an immersive experience. Like I mentioned previously, when you walk across the threshold, it takes you out of your everyday life. I believe that's why we go out into the town. We fight traffic, we deal with parking, the crowds, the people, the things like that, is because we want a little bit of an escape, right? It's not a full vacation, but how much of that vacation experience can we pack into a 4-hour night? And it starts, as you mentioned, with an immersive experience. So we've recruited, I don't want to drop names because that's just not who I am. You'll have to trust that these are high level people, but people who have been on tour, front of house managers with A-list stars for 35 plus years. We have 3 of them working on this project: lights, sound, and then staging, ambiance, those kind of things, all doing their part. And the goal is to elevate that experience. So down to live 3D surround type sound, hasn't really been possible outside of, say, a Vegas venue, I would say. And we're implementing that as part. So not just your line arrays and your typical, wow, this sound is amazing and the lights are amazing, because they will be, but you'll hear, if the guitarist wants to, you'll hear his solo behind you, and we can walk that sound all around the room. And that's just something you don't see very many places. We can put spotlights on people. We'll have cameras all over the venue so we can highlight special moments. Let's say an engagement or something really magical like that. We can capture that moment. Everything will be recorded. Everything will be properly produced and distributed. And so it's an experience above and beyond just going out and getting a couple of drinks and hanging out with your friends or your loved ones. This is going to blow you away.
Yeah, I love that. Going to blow you away. Of course, you know about experiential experiences through your background in the vacation rental space. That's an experience. Of course, you had a successful exit in that space. Take us back to when you started thinking about Aura Lounge, sort of the genesis. Were you out at a place in Nashville and you said to yourself, hey, there has to be a better way to do this? Or what was the sort of the stem or the brainstorm that brought this about?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it started even longer ago than that. As I started realizing my own success in business, I always wanted a place to go that just didn't seem to exist, or you'd have to travel. I mean, I went to Vegas many, many times to try to get this outside experience, right outside of the normal. And I always wanted something like like what we're creating. But what I thought it was going to evolve into was a membership only small lounge. What we've actually created, as my light bulbs turned on and I met the right people, and we can go into that at some point. But I believe entrepreneurship and growing a big business is 99% people and relationships. As you can have a bad idea, but if the team is flawless, your idea will grow very large. And so this came about as I found the friends and the team and the people to put this vision together. It became more than just this little private lounge that you only have stodgy members who can afford it, into a 9,000 square foot state of the art, quite expensive, mind you, to put together. But, this giant venue that will fill a real need and serve more people than just, say, my original selfish idea. Right. And so it did go, like you said, from the genesis to a fully evolved, but it's because of the partnership that we've created and the vision that we have more for Nashville rather than just my little old vision that started this thing.
Yeah, I love it. You talk about the team. Of course, you've always been able to create great teams throughout your career. Of course, the Aura Lounge is no different. You've assembled a world-class team to put this together, 9,000 square feet in Nashville. So let's talk about it, because we always talk about the competitive landscape. Micah, this is something that you understand very well with your experience. Talk about sort of the unique selling proposition, or the thing that's going to make people want to come to Aura in the Nashville area. There's a lot of people that visit, a lot of tourists now coming there. Why are they going to want to come to Aura versus some of the other places in Nashville?
Well, to start, I think that in Nashville, we have a very mismatched size and scope problem. We have arenas, right? So you have Bridgestone Arena or the Nissan Stadium, and they can seat tens of thousands of people, right? Or you have, say, the Ryman that can seat in the 3,000+. And then you have small bars, right? Your honky tonks and those things that can get a couple hundred max, and it's very uncomfortable at that point. So one of the driving factors, one of the original, very business on the nose reasons you would come here is it's going to be one of only a small handful of mid-size venues. So any mid-size artist, any mid-size say conference, right, that they can't fill up Bridgestone, they can come here. Product releases, corporate events, seminars, those kind of things that would need a room for, say, 600 to 1,000 people. That's what we're going to offer. So that's the direct business reason for doing this. It fits a very nice niche, which makes me feel a lot safer about the investment going into it. Above and beyond that, we're taking not just that market, which most people, what I find, most entrepreneurs would say, well, that's a great market. I'll just slap some speakers and some lights in this room and let's go see how much money we can make. I've had, like you mentioned, had several exits and want to do this for a bit more of a cultural reason than just a financial reason. Sure, we have to make money as entrepreneurs. Stewarding the resources that we have is our number one job. And hey, points are points, right? The Titans don't stop beating a team because they're winning by too many points. They just keep smashing that team. So we're going to keep smashing, and we'll make as much money as we can. But we went with a ridiculously like outlandish lights package, right? We down to fog, lasers, spots. I mean, you name it. We can host everything from your typical country acoustic band all the way to the most hardcore rave you've ever seen in any city in the world. The sound system will be flawless. So instead of loud, we're going for clear. All right. You're going to walk into this, hear everything, not need earplugs and not leave deaf. That's going to be a big difference. And then down to the service staff being aware of you, aware of your preferences, aware of where you are in the venue, right? Having enough staff, having them in uniform so you can find them, having easy entry and access, not having a crowded bar because there's no seating at the bar. Parking is a huge problem in Nashville. We're going to have valet parking. So you just drive up and you will take care of your car. We have several acres in the back for parking. And so just solving these problems, right? You mentioned we go out, we see problems, it creates these things. So benefit for me, I get to go out quite a lot and go experience all these things. And then we come back the next day and do our business notes and digest these things and try to make our venue better before it starts.
Yeah, I love it. It reminds me of Joe Rogan's mothership down in Austin, Texas, of course. When we think about it, you make things sound so easy, but it's not easy. It's not easy to start something. It's not easy to deal with the local authorities, with all the rules and regulations. Let's talk about that, because for the younger entrepreneurs watching the show, Micah, give us some sense of what it takes to open something like this and what type of rules and regulations or sort of interactions you have to have with the local city and the local authorities to make sure that this thing comes together in a way that they approve.
Yeah, I think my blood pressure just went up, man. No, all jokes aside, it is not easy. And I think that's maybe why there hasn't been something like this just so far in Nashville. I'm reticent to speak negatively about my city because I think they're working as hard as they possibly can. So, any negative comments is not a judgment on them or their work ethic. It just sort of is the reality. We went from a city of a few 100,000 people to 2+ million people in just 7 years, something along those lines, 10 years, perhaps at max. And so we have these systems that are a little bit antiquated, a little bit slower. And now we're building giant skyscrapers and the best venue you've ever imagined possible, from yours truly, of course. And it just slows things down. And so as an entrepreneur, be aware that when I started the budget for this thing, it was a couple $1 million and say a year to be open. We're at double that, minimally double that. Our carry costs are monthly at this point, which is very painful. And the timeline, we have not even fully finished the approval process, and we hit a year next month. So as a good entrepreneur, I've turned that into my benefit, right? We've gotten to overplan, we've gotten to adjust things, and we're going to turn it into a win no matter what. And so I think going into this thing with some fluidity instead of like a brick wall will benefit you as an entrepreneur should you want to do something like this. And then just whatever you believe your budget is, add 50% just for your own mental safety.
Yeah, good advice, Micah, for the entrepreneurs watching the show. Now, when I come to the venue, I like to eat. As people know, I love to eat. And I know that you're probably going to add some type of food service component to this opportunity. Is that right? And if you're doing that, how do you manage that as well?
Yeah, good question. So food service is something that we dabble in, but personally is not my core competency. And none of my partners. So one of my partners has 25 years in food and beverage, ran restaurants. I mean, he could run a restaurant within Aura. I believe that probably the most important core value is excellent entertainment above all else, right? And so before we make a dollar, we want you to walk in and walk out saying you had a great experience. Food, as you mentioned, if you were to show up and our food was terrible, that would ruin your experience. And so I have what I would say is a lack of experience in offering food, but the need for a great experience. Our solution to that, because we have ample parking, we're in sort of an old remodeled warehouse complex. We're going to outsource the food. And so based on the type of show, we want to make sure the food is curated, if you will, for that audience. So if it's a Frank Sinatra style show, we're going to have small plates and upper scale food, hors d'oeuvres, nicer drinks, those kind of things. If it's a country show, we're going to have a barbecue pit outside, and beer and those kind of things on hand. The way we do that is we're connecting with our local entrepreneurs that have food trucks or catering businesses. We're going to ask them, the best of the best, to come to Aura and either man a station inside, outside, cater it, whatever it takes. But you will have various food options based on the show that you're coming to see.
Yeah, I love that, Micah. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about all the entrepreneurs that I speak with throughout the day, all these great entrepreneurs that are running small to mid-sized companies, even Fortune 100 companies. And one thing that everybody's looking for is team building. They're looking for an event space. They're looking for something a little different for their company to sort of experience. And I was just thinking, this would be a great spot for an entrepreneur or a CEO or C-level executive to bring a team or bring a group to Nashville and then rent out your facility for a totally different experience. Is that on tap as well?
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right on. And that's one of our core business models is the corporate events, the team building, the trade shows, those kind of things. And I think what we're going to do that's different than, say, you could go to a hotel downtown and rent a ballroom and try to throw this yourself. The sound's going to be mediocre. The lights don't exist. You're going to get, whatever tables they have in stock or that you want to rent, those kind of things, limited food options. We're going to look at your corporate event like a big show. Like if Carrie Underwood was playing, that's how we want to treat this, right? How do we treat the executives or the speakers or whoever's important in the green room? What do they have? Do they have staff access to us so that they can control the event? We'll have a sound person on, a lights person on. We can reorganize the stage. So if they want to be able to walk up and down the crowd and have split seating, if they want stadium seating, if they want the whole thing recorded, edited, chopped up later for marketing purposes or educational purposes, you name it. And we can even remove all of those things, and we can do trust falls right in the middle of Aura if you really want to, on your own insurance for you entrepreneurs out there that want to do that. Take it from we're going to throw a little event to we are going to put on a show. This will not just be us showing up and mingling and hoping everybody has a good time. It will be Aura's responsibility to ensure that your event is fun. You don't have to provide the fun. We will provide that. You just have to come and show up and have a good time.
I love it. Everything you've done, from the music to the sound, to the colors, to the fabrics, to the entrance, to every little bolt, every little nook and cranny, even the bathrooms is thought out. And you're thinking about it in terms of the experience for the person that comes. Everything you do, you become known for that, where you're able to get your mind into the mind of the consumer. You're able to get your mind into the mind of the visitor. You're able to get your mind into the mind of the music lover that's going to be coming to Aura. Where did that start from, where you're able to sort of transform yourself into the mind of your customer so that you can give that customer exactly what they want and need?
Yeah, as we talked about offline, leading into that question, when I started business, I was a 25-year-old punk kid who didn't know up from down, truly. I mean, I came out of the Marine Corps. I worked at Merrill Lynch for a few years, and so I learned some things, but I didn't know anything. And that led me to be curious. And I think the biggest thing that I've done that has led to creating these experiences and being in the mind of my customers is I've just asked them. It's as simple as saying, hey, you're going to a venue. What do you expect? And you ask 40, 50, 100 people that question, and then you actually listen. And I think that's the trick, is a lot of people think that they ask questions, but they don't listen to the answer. And I actually, with our team, we sit down, and if a lady told us, you know what, the most annoying thing about a bathroom is when I go in there and the floor is wet and I slip in my heels and I feel like I'm going to fall down, right? We most people would just ignore that, right? It's going to cost an extra whatever. I look at that and say, well, what can we do to the floors to make sure she never slips? And it sounds simple, but it's one more thing in the experience. So the trick to me is just ask the questions, right? I could have gone to a million venues and had my own opinion and built this thing. And I promise you, nobody would have shown up, right? Maybe some of my friends or something like that. But if I ask everybody that's involved in going and experiencing this, what they want, now my job becomes a lot simpler because it turns from a giant unsolvable problem into a checklist of solvable things.
Yeah, so interesting. Now, I know this is a little geeky. I know this is kind of getting into it a little bit, but I love that example that you mentioned about the wet floor in the bathroom. I mean, that's just an entrepreneur paying attention. And I love that. And you do a great job of that. Is there a stage inside or is it portable? Can you move it out? Do you move it in? I would imagine you're now also moving into becoming sort of a logistics company at the same time, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Again, with the blood pressure, man, I got to stop doing these interviews. No, I'm kidding. Um, yeah, so the stage is fully mobile. The entire inside of Aura, outside of the fixed walls for bathroom, green room, and kitchen, it's completely mobile. So we can take the stage out. We've talked to fashion companies about doing fashion shows, so we can run a stage completely down the middle. We've talked to large companies about doing educational content. So we have a 16-foot LED wall, and we can do stadium seating. So everybody could be seated and in a comfortable mindset to absorb educational material. We could do movie premieres, right? We have the high-end 3D sound. We have a great LED wall with high resolution. But to your point, yes, this is very much a logistics company, right? We have dozens of people who are going to have to move stuff. Nothing's fixed. We could have 3 turnovers, right? In our business plan, there's a morning business meeting that lasts until early afternoon. And then we have, say, an early show for commuters who want to just stop by, get some drinks, hear a band, have something like that. And then we'll have the late show. And so you could see 3 different versions of what we offer in one day.
Yeah, I love it. And of course, before I let you go, you've only cut out a certain amount of time. I want to talk about entrepreneurship and give back. But before I do, you mentioned your staff. And I think this is very important for our entrepreneurs watching the show. At Aura, of course, your plan is to have the best of the best staff. And you're going to get a lot of people that want to work there, a lot of people that want to be part of this team. What do you look for? Like, what's the main thing you're looking for? Is it the attitude? Is it the experience? Is it the brightness? Is it someone that can smile at your customer, or is it a combination thereof?
Yeah, I look for heart. If you've got a heart to serve people, you're probably going to be good on our team. One thing I learned the hard way over time is you can solve head issues, meaning if you don't know what you're doing or you don't have the experience, that can be taught and imparted over time. You cannot fix the heart. And so the number one thing I look for is somebody's heart.
Wow. Great, great. And for entrepreneurs watching the show, you have to put a great team together and the heart has to lead. I mean, you can have MIT grads and Harvard grads, but if they're not into it and they don't believe it and they don't want to provide the mission or the vision of the company, you got a big problem. So, Micah, thank you for mentioning that. Before I let you go, let's talk to the younger entrepreneurs watching the show. Maybe they're having a tough time. Maybe they're freezing in the frame a little bit. Can you give some advice to the younger entrepreneurs about what it takes to keep on going through tough times?
Yeah. I mean, you have to absorb a certain level of suck. It is just possible and probable in your daily life. And so to retaliate against that, you have to develop grit. I fortunately came from a very meager background and then was thrust immediately into the Marine Corps and served 2 combat tours. So grit was like just innate for me. I think I had an unfair advantage, right? Heck, doing sales door to door is a lot better than being shot at, right? But you almost have to create that within yourself. And so for early entrepreneurs, I don't like to call them young because I have entrepreneurs who are starting in their 60s. But when I coach an early entrepreneur, I tell them, get a physical fitness routine, do all your hard things first early in the morning when you're fresh, right? There was a book, I think, I can't quote the artist, but the Some of the book was eat the frog, right? Don't nibble the frog. Don't take little bites. Don't try to spread it out through the day. Just get up and eat the frog right away. And you have to do that. But the truth is, if you can't discipline yourself and have grit, you are not going to make it, period. There's just no way through it. And so when something hard happens, you have to deal with it. But I also recommend finding a way to reward yourself on the micro level every time you do that. So for me, it was taking a little break. If I had to do something really hard, I would take a 15-minute break, unplug, play video games, do whatever your thing is, right? So that you get that immediate feedback, right? In our society today, we are immediately fed easy things over and over and over, right? Our endorphin rush is super through the roof. Our grit is super low. You have to combat that with real stuff. And so the simplest way is discipline yourself, get some sort of routine that creates discipline. I like working out. I think it's one of the best ones. But then reward yourself as you go. If you don't, at some point, you're just going to give up because it's not worth it. This stuff takes years. I mean, I built my first exit took 12 years, right? It doesn't happen overnight. You look at me now, I'm, young and beautiful and very successful, but it didn't happen overnight. There were many, many, many Christmases where Santa just didn't come, right? That's just the reality of it. And we had to live with that for many, many years. So
Yeah, great.
long way to say it. Sorry for taking so much time with that.
No, I love it. Of course, I could see that being the name of your TED Talk, get the grit. I have one follow-up question. Pardon me for keeping you a little bit over, but Kristen and I and our family, we always appreciate your service and appreciate the service of our servicemen and women throughout the world. And let's talk about hiring people that have a military background. What types of advantages does an employer or an entrepreneur get when they hire somebody with that military background? Do they come into the job better prepared, maybe better disciplined? Let's talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, I think the core of it is you get the basics out of the way. We call it basic training for a reason. When I was 17 in boot camp in the Marine Corps, they taught you everything from shaving your face to tying your shoes to combing your hair, all the way through, all the other stuff that you hear about. And so I think the biggest benefit you get, because there are some negatives, the biggest benefit you get is you're not going to have to go back and teach the basics. They're going to know scheduling. They're going to know a reasonable amount of respect and courtesy and, these kind of things that you need in a business. And so you'll start miles ahead, but you still have to look at their heart, because there are plenty coming from a Marine. I am the most brutal on my brothers and sisters. There are many people out there that just didn't get the memo, and move on. You don't owe. Take it from me, combat tours, service, all the things. You don't owe these people anything. They have earned a lot. They are worthy of respect. But if they're not going to have a heart for you and your business, cut them just like you would anybody else.
Wow. I love it. Great advice, Micah. I mean, such a honor to have you on the show. Aura Lounge is coming to Nashville. I know it's going to be opening soon. As soon as it's underway, we're going to bring you back on the show. We're going to show some video and some photos of all the people enjoying this immersive space. I mean, it's incredible. I want to thank you so much for coming on the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today, Micah. It's been great.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's been a pleasure for me too.